You are the sum total of the decisions that you have made. Think about it. Where you are today is a result of the decisions that you have made. Where you will be tomorrow will be on account of the decisions that you are making today. Decision is the train, the plane, the vehicle that gets you to your destination. It therefore means if you do not like where you are today, you may want to take a look into your decision making process. Today, I'll be sharing with you the art and the science of making decision that gets you to your destination. I am Stephen Richards, your host and development practitioner. Welcome to another episode of the Reality Focus podcast, where our mission is simple: end rural poverty, especially poverty of the mind, create prosperity. Here is the hard truth about decision. A decision is made in a moment. Albeit, you may think about it, you may research it, you may even seek counsel. But at the point in time when a decision is made, it is made in a moment. And can I tell you, that is the easiest part of the decision making process. When you make a decision in a moment, you may feel an emotional high, feeling as though you're out to conquer the world. But what follows after is often an emotional low. And this is where the real challenge is at. Join me. Think about it. This is point A, and we have point B. Point A is the point where you make a decision. Point B is the point where the decision is successful or you have achieved success on account of the decision that you have made. However, between point A and point B, as you can see, is a bridge that is called management. So this bridge that is called management is where the real challenge is at. Because every decision that is made in a moment, for it to reap success, you must manage those decisions daily. It is John Maxwell that says, successful people make decisions early and they manage them daily. And so the real challenge when it comes on to a decision is how you manage it until it reaps the success that you so desire. Decisions are made complicated by the fact that in our lives, my life and your life, there's so much competing obligations that we have. You have family obligation, you have work obligation, and there are those unexpected emergencies that often come at you in the blink of an eye and through your life, oftentimes off course. And the question is, how do you manage in the midst of these complicating and competing obligations that is vying for your time? May I submit to you first and foremost that you cannot manage your life without a plan. Yes, you've heard me right. You need a plan to manage your life, especially in the midst of competing obligations. Now, one may argue that a plan doesn't always go according to plan. But may I submit to you, a plan will ensure that you're getting the highest return on investment for your time. Time is the measure of life, and it matters how you spend it. A plan will ensure that you do not become someone else's priority. A plan will ensure that you are saying no to the things that don't align to your plan. Chances are, if you don't have a plan, you may be saying yes to things that you should be saying no to. You see, it tells you the decisions or the direction rather that you ought to take, And it also tells you the direction that you ought not to take. And so having a plan is very important. But today we're going to talk about really how can we establish a plan for our life. First and foremost, for you to establish a plan for your life, you must start at the point of establishing a purpose or a goal. So we're going to put that as number one. You must have a purpose slash goal. That is the starting point. You must have a purpose and you must have a goal. Nobody just build a house for building sake. It's either you're going to build for a residential purpose or you're going to build for a commercial purpose. But you must have a goal in mind. And so you must first sit down and establish a goal or a purpose for which you hope to accomplish sometime in the future. Now, the second thing that you ought to take into consideration is to ensure that you list all the actions that will allow you to get to your goal. So, the second thing that you must take into consideration are actions. You ought to ensure that you're listing all the actions that will take you or get to your goal. Now, where you are, you may not be aware or you may not be knowledgeable of all the actions. May I submit to you, the first thing is not to rush into action, but actually to take the time to talk to someone because someone have trod the road that you wish to trod now. You may have to read a book, you may have to research, but it is necessary that you have an understanding of the actions that will get you to the purpose or the goal that you intend. Now, after, for example, if my purpose is to build a house, I'm going to look on some of the actions that will take me there. First, I will need to think about, do I have enough money? So I need to go to the bank and make some arrangement to get a loan. I may need to talk to a realtor, and then I may also need to have a plan in place. And so these are just some of the actions that will get me to the purpose intended, which is to build a house. But here's what. After you've listed the actions that will take you to the goal or to the purpose that you have intended, then you must establish priority. You must establish those actions according to priority. So I like to refer to this as sequencing, having the proper sequencing. So the third thing that you ought to do is to ensure you have the proper sequencing. Sequencing is very, very important. Why? Because you don't want to be building the walls of the house when you have not laid the foundation. You could be doing a good thing, but in a wrong time. Proper sequencing, the prioritization is very important. And so, what you want to do is to ensure that you are sequencing these actions according to the right priority. So, first, if I'm supposed to sequencing my own action, which my goal is to build a house, I will first have to say, okay, what is number one? Number one is to ensure that I am qualified for a loan. So I may write down qualified for a loan. For a loan. Number two, I may have to look and say, okay, what property am I looking for? Is it within the budget? So I may need to speak to a realtor. So then number two will be speaking to a realtor. To a realtor. And I can go on and on. But what I'm doing is sequencing my actions according to priority, which is very, very important. Sequencing is very, very important. Now that I've sequenced my actions according to the priority, then the fourth thing that I will seek to do is establish establish a time frame. That's the fourth thing that I would need to do. I would need to establish a time frame. Now, the time frame that you're establishing is according to each action. So here it is that I said, okay, I'm going to see if I'm qualified for the loan. How long will this take? I may say, okay, this will take me about 1 month, probably less. Um, at what point? How long it's going to take for me to talk to the realtor? So I'm going to say, okay, this will take probably a week, 1 week. And so what I'm doing is ensuring that my goals or the actions that I need to take do not run indefinitely into the future, but there is some amount of accountability by virtue of an established timeline or a time frame. Ensure that in your planning, you're putting time frame to each of the action that you must take. It will hold you accountable for things to be done according to a given timeline. Now, after you have established your timeline, the next thing that you ought to think of is cost. Yes, that's number 5 is cost. And whereas you may think not just financial cost, because yes, it will cost you financially in terms of monies, but it will also cost you emotionally. Because there are times when you have to delay gratification in the here and now for a plan that you hope to achieve in the future. And so the plan will cost you emotionally. It may also cost you relationship wise. It may mean that you may lose some friends on account of the sacrifices that you will have to make in order to achieve the plan or the purpose that you have in mind. And so you want to ensure that you sit down and you count the cost and say to yourself, is it a cost I am willing to pay? Because it doesn't make sense to take on the journey and you're not comfortable, you have not made up in your mind that you will be paying the cost. There is a cost associated with success. Now, after you have established the cost, so for me, if I'm going to build a house, I'm going to think about the material cost, I'm going to think about labor, I'm going to think about the approval cost. And so all of those things I am factoring into consideration because I'm putting this plan together in order to reach a future, which is which is actually B. So we have A, where the decision starts, and B is where success is at. And I'm ensuring that in order for me to cross this bridge, I am ensuring that I put in place proper management by virtue of an established plan. So number 6, here's what I'm doing at number 6. Number 6, I'm establishing a team. You will need a team. There is nothing that is called independence. That word, strike it from your mind, strike it from your vocabulary. We live in an interdependent society, meaning we all have to depend on each other in some shape or in some form. And so it is when it comes on to your goal. You cannot do it alone. You will need to gather around your persons who can make the relevant inputs into your life. Persons who are able to add value to your plan. Now, you can build a house by yourself, yes, but how long will that take you? It will take you years. But if you gather around you the necessary expertise, then what will take 10 years is likely to take 1 year. So you want to ensure that you have the proper team. So I'm going to get an architect, I'm going to get person skill in construction, skill in steel work for building my house, because that's the purpose that I have in mind. Now, 7 and final. 7 and final is you must take account of the risk factors. Things won't always go as you planned. And so you want to ensure that you have a plan in place for the things that will not go according to plan. So just don't plan only for success, but plan also for things that are likely to throw your plan off course. And so what you're doing is that you're ensuring that you're taking into account the risk factors as much or as best as is possible, and you're ensuring that you have a plan in place. So for example, if I know that I'm going to purchase sand, likely I'm building in a rainy season, I may want to say, okay, what contingency do I need to put in place so that when I start to build and rain start to fall, then the water won't carry away the sand. And so you ought to ensure that your plan take into account those risk factors. May I submit to you that a plan is very important for you and I. How on earth are you going to make the best use of your time if you don't have a plan? Plan, time rather, is more valuable than money. You can have more money and you can get more money, but you cannot get more time once it is spent. And so you want to ensure that you're making the best use of your time. So my challenge to you this week is that as you go throughout this week, ensure that you sit down and you establish a plan. It's never too late to start. Thank you.